It's time for us to get started here. This is a little bit different tonight from our normal Wednesday night service. We have with us tonight Jason Smith and Michael Summers from the Biltmore Church of Christ congregation up in Asheville, North Carolina. And come down here, we're donating a van to them and some monetary value also. And several members of the congregation have asked if they can make personal donations. And if you want to do that and make out a check, make it out to Biltmore Church of Christ, and we'll have some people, a couple of people at the back when service is over. And they're going to do a video presentation here in a few minutes, but we'll have a couple of songs and a prayer first. Jesse.
Our first song tonight will be number 684. 684, first and last verse.
This world is not my home, I'm just a passing through. My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Just up in glory land will live eternally. The saints on every hand are shouting victory. Their songs of sweetest praise drift back from heaven's shore, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore.
Our second song will be number 694. 694, first and last verse. After the song, we'll have our prayer. To Canaan's land, I'm on my way, where the soul never dies. My darkest night will turn to day, where the soul never dies. No sad farewells, no tear-dimmed eyes, where all is love and the soul never dies. I'm on my way to that fair land where the soul never dies, where there will be no parting hand, where the soul never dies. No sad farewells, no tear-dimmed eyes, where all is love and the soul never dies.
Good evening. So as it was mentioned, my name is Michael Summers. I'm the pulpit minister at the Biltmore Church in Asheville. And what we thought we would do tonight is I would start off by speaking, kind of give you a big picture overview of everything that's been going on and what we've been dealing with and going through. And then Jason would get up and he would speak more specifically, tell you some of the stories, some of the more of the details that are going on. Tonight is 7 weeks since the hurricane hit. So it's been 7 weeks. The morning after it hit, my son and I went walking through our neighborhood. We couldn't believe what we saw. It was like a war zone. Trees were down everywhere. Houses were destroyed. Cars were destroyed. It was an absolute mess. What we found out later was our neighborhood was actually pretty good compared to everything else around us. When it first hit, we dealt with 3 really big problems. Number one was just the destruction that happened. Trees were blown over. They came on top of houses, destroyed houses. When the trees came down, mudslides started happening, wiped houses and cars away. Lots of flooding. The water got really, really high. And so there was destruction everywhere. The second big problem was the power went out. The whole city all around us was without power for a couple of weeks. And then the third problem was the water. We have no water to drink. It's no good. 7 weeks later now, most of us have power back. So that's good. We still don't have water. There's still no water that's clean to drink. And as far as the destruction, we've cleaned up a lot of what we can clean up, but there's a lot to still do, and for those who lost houses, they're still in big trouble. There are people still living in tents. They are living in cars and vans. They are living wherever they can because they have lost everything. Within a couple days after it hit, our church turned into a distribution center. Immediately after it happened, we were cut off from the world. It was a few days before anybody could get in or out of Asheville. We were completely cut off. But once we got the roads opened and we could start traveling, our church building turned into a distribution center. And people started coming to us because we had water and we had food. That was the initial push. In fact, our first thought was, what are we going to do with all this water? We had like 20-some pallets of bottled water. There was tons of it. What are we going to do with it? We can't even get rid of this much water. No, we got rid of it. We're asking for more water now. That's how big the need was. We had so many people bring food in, and after the initial push for food and water, we started getting heaters and tents and sleeping bags. We got clothes, cold weather clothes. We got all sorts of stuff. And our church has seen an outpouring of help from around the country. Churches of Christ have come together in a way that, theoretically you like to think it would happen, but then when you see it with your own eyes and it's really happening, it's pretty amazing. To say that we are brothers and sisters, even though I don't know anybody from that congregation, I've never heard of anyone from that congregation, and yet the outpouring of support and help, it has been absolutely amazing. And so we've gotten tons and tons of support as far as supplies and monetary support and all sorts of stuff. People saying, I want to help. We've had crews coming in from all over the place. We want to cut trees. We want to clear roads. We want to serve people. We want to distribute. We want to do all of this stuff. And it has just been amazing to see that amount of support. And then in turn, what we have done is we have taken that and we have started putting it out into the community to help our neighbors, to help the people around us. Originally, we started off as a distribution center so that people in the neighborhood could come and get food, water, clothes, all of that stuff. But we have now sort of shifted the focus to where we are going out. We're taking the supplies out into those communities that are the hardest hit and that really need it. We're going out into the communities that, they are still dealing with destruction. They can't get their cars out of the driveway because it's been washed away or because there's trees laying across it. We've been going out to try and help. And some people look at what has happened and would say, you know, this is such devastation. This is such a travesty. This is just absolutely awful. But you could also look at it from the perspective of this is an opportunity. This has been an opportunity for the church to do something amazing for people who are hurting. This has been the opportunity for the church to really reach out and to serve our neighbors in ways that we wouldn't have been able to serve before. And that is what, personally, I have seen happening and has been so amazing for me, is to see us being able to capitalize on the opportunity to show Christ and to show love, to show what God is really all about to people in a way that they might not have seen it otherwise. Shortly after all of this happened, the news crews started coming in, and they wanted interviews, they wanted sound bites, and so I did an interview with one of the channels out of Charlotte, and that night my wife watched the interview, and of course she said, "I'm not so sure about that one. I don't like that one. Your sound bite wasn't that great." I was like, what are you talking about? I thought it was pretty good. What I had said in that interview was, this is something that has forced us to be the Christians we say we are. And this has forced us to love people the way we say we love people. Of course, my wife didn't like the way I said we were forced. Like we didn't want to all along, but now we have to. I said, no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. What this means is, what I meant was, we got to put our money where our mouth is. We can't just talk the talk, we got to start walking the walk. We say we love our neighbor, do we really? It's time to start showing it. Within our church, specifically, within our congregation, we had 2 members who lost everything. We were very lucky. A lot of people had small damage, minimal damage, things happened, basements flooded, trees fell, but in the end, it's salvageable, it's recoverable. 2 members lost houses, cars, everything, completely gone. We very quickly tended to them, tended to our own members, took care of them, and now it's time to go out and show Christ to everyone else. Our people were taken care of, now it's time to take care of more and more and more and more. And this has been the biggest opportunity and chance for evangelism and outreach. We've been able to touch lives in ways that we never could have before. And a big reason is because we are in the center of it and we're ready to do it. But another reason is because all the churches around the country have been sending us the means to do that very thing. And so this is a coordinated effort all across the country of showing people Christ. We just happen to be at the hub of it, but it's everyone else who's making such a difference. That's kind of how I see it as a pulpit minister. Again, I said big picture. It's the opportunity for evangelism and outreach and just to do all of those things that we say we do. Now we can really put it into action, and it's been pretty awesome. But I'll let Jason talk more about some of the specifics. I know you all want to hear some of the stories and how bad really is it. Well, it's bad. He'll tell you how bad it really is. And we just really want to say thank you to all of you too for your support and for the things that you've already done for us and will do for us in the future. And let you know it is making a big difference. It is making an impact on lives because people have been coming to our congregation. As I said, how do we get rid of that water? We got rid of it fast. They needed it. We don't have drinking water. It's sustaining lives. It's keeping people alive. Thank you for all that you're doing and helping us do the work that we are.
Good evening, church. Now I got a big mouth. Do I need to move this down a little bit? I'm kind of loud. I feel like I'm super loud. So I want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart and all of our congregation for when I received word that we might get a donation of a church van, when our church van is a 24-year-old Ford, and just this week the driver's side window gave up. I was happy to hear that we might get another church van to be able to put into use. So we really appreciate that and all of the financial support that we've received. I do want to make mention, because several folks have made mention of my Harding t-shirt, and no, I did not go to Harding, and this shirt was given to me because I drag kids all over to the colleges, and they feel like it's important to give me some kind of gear to walk away with. So this shirt came from the recruiter there, who wants me to bring kids back. So he made sure I had a shirt to wear. I brought a flannel shirt actually to wear tonight, but I've lost 30 pounds in the last 2 months. So when I put it on, it felt like I was wearing a sheet. So I decided I should probably change shirts. So what Michael mentioned to you were big picture things that we've been doing and experiencing. And you've seen some of the pictures in the background. There's one picture in the stream of a house that's got "Do Not Enter" painted on the front of it. That house is directly across the street from our church building. And it had a huge tree fall on it, and now that tree is actually in the yard of the church. And so they pulled it off the house and moved it across the street into the churchyard, where it will be until the FEMA trucks can make a round and pick it up. A neighbor to the right side of our church building had a tree fall across their shed and fall on their cars and crush their garage. Somehow our church building was one of the very few buildings in that whole neighborhood that didn't receive some sort of damage from the hurricane. As Michael mentioned, I live about 30 minutes away from our church building, and out where I lived, you couldn't get out. There were trees literally everywhere, and where there weren't trees, there was standing water, so you couldn't cross through. So it took 3 or 4 days for us to figure out ways to get out and go around and start checking on folks. And to be honest, until we could get out, we had no idea if we were the only ones affected or if there were other people. And as we made our way out into the communities and started to figure out how really bad it was, I grew up in that area. And I know many families who lost homes, cars, family members. And it was really, when the devastation started to sink in at how bad it really was, it hurt. And I won't never forget having an opportunity. I say opportunity, it's something I will never ever do again. But I went out with a crew with the cadaver dogs that searched in the mud, and since I was from the area, they asked if I would go with them because they were not. They had come in from out of town. And to walk with them and to walk across dirt and silt and mud that had washed up out of the river and follow those dogs, and everywhere those dogs point, those guys are going over and putting flags, and then people go start digging, looking for human remains. I won't ever get over finding dead folks in the mud, washed up in the mud. Won't ever get rid of that in my memory bank. We had a school the Asheville Christian Academy that was down the way from Swananoa River just a ways, but the water got up so high and got so high so quickly, people couldn't get out. And they found 9 people washed up against the side of the school building in the mud. My wife had one of her employees called her and told her she didn't know when she'd be able to come back to work. And she just sent my wife a video without any other words. And what the video was a video of her mom and dad. She had shown up just in time to their home, she parked up on the hill, and their house is off down a hill, down a driveway. And her parents and her son were on the roof of their house right as it collapsed, and she videoed the whole thing of them washing off and drowning in the water as it was so high. And so you really start to wonder, what in the world are we going to do, and how are we going to recover? And when my wife sent me that, I'm not afraid to tell you I was already emotional from a lot of the other things, and I just sit and cried. I didn't know what else to do. And I knew this woman and knew her son, and had been 2 weeks before that, I had seen him in their place of work at the school my wife works at. I had seen that child that I watched drown, basically. One of the hardest hitting stories, I talked to a gentleman who, when the crews came upon him and trying to dig folks out, and as they were finding folks out in one of our neighborhoods in Guerin Creek, they come walking up on a gentleman who was buried up to his chest, the top of his chest, almost the bottom of his shoulders, in mud. And as they approached him, he just begged them to go ahead and kill him. He said he didn't want to live any longer. And when they tried to console him, and they told him, no man, we're here, we're going to get you dug out. And he's like, no, my wife and my daughter are gone, and I just don't want to be here anymore. I'm not sure how I would have reacted to that, but the firemen were like, no, man, we finding people all the time. Let's be positive about this. Well, I'm sure we'll find them. They'll turn up. He told the firemen that no, they wouldn't, because they stopped tapping his leg 3 days prior to that, because they were buried in the mud below him. So as I stand here sharing with you these stories, I'm not telling them to you so they'll break your heart. I'm not. What I am telling you is some of the same things that Michael has shared with you, that we have an opportunity right now where we live to minister to folks in such a way that the only other time I could explain it in history that I know of from reading Scripture, is thinking about when, after Peter gives his sermon in Acts chapter 2, and all of those folks came together after hearing him share the gospel. And how those folks came together and provided a way for one another. They sold their belongings. They did what they had to take care of one another. And as Michael mentioned, in a way, we have been put in a position that that's what a lot of us are having to do. We still do have people living in tents where their houses were. We still do have folks who are struggling to find food. We still have people who are stuck in positions that no one wants to be in. I will tell you about lots of crews that have come in. Thankfully, we've had lots of people from all over We just had a crew of 30 folks, 30 Mennonite folks that came and stayed in our church building and did marvelous work for the 3 days that they were here, and patched some roofs and cut some trees off some homes. They went out to several different communities, and we had one community in particular where this family's home, they were an elderly couple, and their home was 100 yards away from the river, and yet they still had, I think it was 16 inches of silt and mud that had washed in their yard. You couldn't see the grass for the silt and the mud that had washed up in their yard. She had 3 feet of water in her home there. So we were able to get that crew out there, and they brought some equipment. And I don't know if you guys have ever hung out with some Mennonite folks. They don't play around when they get to work, and they cleaned that lady's entire property up with all of that mud and all of the stuff, and they were able to remove it and take it back over and put it back near the river where it belonged. I had never seen someone have the joy in their face after seeing the devastation that they had lived through as this woman had, as those Mennonite folks who also like to sing a cappella stood there, and she posted it on Facebook, the video that she took of them singing her a song, and it was beautiful. And seeing the look on her face that help showed up in the way of the Lord's church. We have others who we have bought some sheds, believe it or not. Some sheds. When you're living in a tent, believe it or not, a garden shed sounds a whole lot better than living in a tent. And so we're in the process of getting some of those built. There's a lot of them already been built. And we've got folks who we're trying to provide some temporary housing for until we can do better for those people. We have received a lot of funds in our congregation to help try to bridge the gap that some of these folks are up against. And just a few of those stories, one of the people in our congregation who lost his home and his truck, we were able through donations, when after his insurance and FEMA were done, he pretty much was going to get $11,000 for his truck and his mobile home that he lived in. And so our elders got together, and we all discussed that the right thing to do was help him get a new home. So he took that $11,000 that he received from his insurance company and FEMA together, and he was going to get himself a vehicle, and we purchased him a new home, put him a new mobile home out on his property. They were able to haul off the old one, and they bringing in a new one. It's supposed to arrive in December. We have many others who are in need. We've got a lot of people in the community that we're trying to map out exactly how to help those folks. And some of you who have experienced lots of natural disasters here yourself, you guys are pretty familiar, I think, when being here with all the tornadoes that sometimes make their way through, and it's hard when some areas are so hard hit because people find themselves in such a financial shortfall. And since we do have lots of folks who are sleeping in tents or sheds where their homes once were, and no one in our area had flood insurance, and for most of these folks, a lot of them weren't even in a floodplain, so there was no reason for them to have flood insurance. And yet, they find themselves in a situation where the insurance company has come in and told them that they can't help them because it was an act of God or an act of nature, and they didn't have flood insurance. And FEMA has come in, and they're giving them a few $1,000s to help with some things, and they gave some of them hotel rooms and different things of that nature. At least they weren't having to sleep outside. But they're going to find themselves, between a rock and a hard place. A lot of them still owe mortgages on homes that don't exist anymore. We're working with a gentleman now trying to help him figure out how to come up with the money each month to pay his mortgage payment, he still owes $200,000 on a home that is no longer there. They even washed away the foundation. There's nothing left of his home. So he's left with a $200,000 shortfall after the money that he received from FEMA and insurance. So we're not going to have enough money to help everyone in that situation, and inevitably that young man and his family will have to file bankruptcy and figure out a way to, and we're going to try to help him figure out a way to get into some kind of home to get a roof over his family's head, whether that be through a tiny home or some way to help them. Right now, they are currently living in a camper that was donated, and so we've gotten them in a camper. There are others who are facing smaller shortfalls that we're going to try to map out and help them. And right now we're working with a family that's facing a $42,000 shortfall, I believe, between what the insurance gave them and what their quotes are to repair their home, where a large oak tree fell right through the middle of it, and very early in the storm. So all of the rain that came just flooded into their home, and so it ruined everything on the inside of their home. And the tree went all the way through the roof, down through came through the ceiling and through part of the floor system in their kitchen and a couple of their bedrooms. So to get that repaired, they got a $67,000 quote, was the cheapest one they got to repair it. And I actually, after looking at the damage, can't believe that it was only $67,000. I have no idea how they're going to fix that house for that much money. I figured it would be $125. And so those are the kinds of things, just trying to give you guys an idea of what some of the families are up against. And I know many of you I've already spoken with who have dealt with similar things or have family members who have dealt with similar things, and you are well aware how frustrating that can be for someone to find out that they have no recourse with a mortgage. They can't get another mortgage. They can't go rent a place because they still have a mortgage to pay, and no one in their right mind is going to give someone a place to rent if they still have a mortgage they owe somewhere else. So it's a difficult situation that a lot of these folks are finding themselves in. We found out today that we still have a family who is FEMA came and inspected their residence 4 weeks ago, and their insurance turned them down, of course, which is what FEMA asked for them to do, is get their insurance company involved and give them a no, and which their insurance company was happy to do that. And FEMA came in and decided that they're going to help them. I think they are going to get about $10,000 at the end of the day from FEMA to try to help them. But unfortunately, they've already spent $40,000 out of their own pocket repairing and doing most of the work themselves, trying to get their house back in order just so they can move back into it. And these are only a couple of the stories financially that we're finding folks up against, and we're coming up with ways that we can try to help as many people as we can and spread the money out as much as we can in an effort to help as many as we can. And we feel like that the hardest part for us is going to be trying to be the church as it should be to those folks that find themselves in situations where they got nowhere else to turn. And it's been interesting how many new folks, new faces we've had on Sunday mornings since we've started back having Sunday morning service, from the community of people who have figured out that we're not bad folks and that maybe this Jesus stuff isn't all that bad. So as we make an effort to try to share with the community the supplies and the money, the monetary donations and different things that we've been given, I hope that you guys will help us in praying for there to be so much joy in what we do that folks can't help but see that there's something different in the Lord's church and what we are trying to do for them, and see that maybe the things in the world that the world has taught them is not exactly what they thought, and that the Lord's church is full of people who care, full of people who love them, and full of people who want to lead them to and teach them who Jesus really is. And that it's not make-believe, and it's not something that we just do on Sunday. And as Michael mentioned, it's put us in a position to have to be Jesus to people who don't care anything about who Jesus is. And so as we've been taking in donations and different things, we do ask, we have actually turned away money when people handed it to us and specified we only want this to go to use for church members. And I'm like, well, we think it could be put to better use if we support those who are in need and see if we can show them who Jesus is through this money that you've donated, instead of just holding it back to help a church member. Because as Michael mentioned, I think the Lord on purpose kept most of our church family safe, kept our church building safe, and kept us in a position to where we can be the ones that are going out and helping and taking donated supplies and clothes and things to people. That has opened the door for us to be able to say, you know, why don't you come have a meal with us? Why, you know, I can't tell you how many people I've prayed with. And I remember specifically praying with a fellow who we were standing where his front door was before his house washed away. And I asked him if I could pray with him, and he said he was 57 years old and no one had ever asked him if he could pray with him before. And as I prayed with him, he stood there and bawled like a baby. So when I tell you we can make where we live so much better through this disaster that's happened. I don't know if many of you are aware, but Asheville is often referred to as Little San Francisco. It's full of a lot of people who don't care anything about church, don't care anything about who God is, who Jesus is. They don't want nothing to do with it. Or if they do, they've twisted it up in such a way that it doesn't even make any sense anymore. We're forcing them to take another look. And we're going to continue to use this opportunity to reach as many of them as we can and make sure they know who Jesus really is. And that he loves them and cares for them, and that he died for them too. So I'm going to shut up with an invitation. An invitation to say, man, if you don't know who Jesus is, if there's any question in your heart who Jesus is to you, you're welcome to drive on up to Asheville anytime you want. Come hang out with us for a little while. Because we're going to force you to be Jesus to somebody. You figure out who Jesus is in your life when you figure out how to show him to someone else. When you're put in a position to have to explain who Jesus is to another person, you really figure out, well, what and who is he really to me? And I've worked with the kids at our church for 9 years now. Dealing with this disaster has changed completely. And from now on, how I will work with kids or anyone as far as that goes. Because it's made me figure out who Jesus really was to me. So tonight, if you're here and you're not sure, I challenge you to let this church family here help you figure out how to get sure who Jesus is. And if maybe you're someone that has been coming and hanging out around churches for a while. Most folks don't come to church on a Wednesday night that don't come to church some. But if you are and you're someone who's snuck in this room and you don't know who Jesus is, you've never been baptized, and you're thinking that might be something you want to do, I challenge you to make that step. Don't wait any longer. too many people got washed up in the mud in Asheville that waited too long. Don't wait for another time. There's no better time than right now. So if that decision is one you're wanting to make tonight, if you want to stand as we're going to sing a song that's prepared, make your way forward so someone can help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason and Michael. Just also like to say that some of you might want to make a donation to these folks now. We've got a couple of guys at the back. If you want to make out a check to the Biltmore Church of Christ there, or if you want to do it later, if you'll get it to us here at Lone Cedar, we'll see that it gets to them. But appreciate them coming and give us an understanding more of what's going on, and many people are interested in this, so if you want, like I say, if you want to do a check later, we'll be happy to get it to them. On our regular announcements tonight, we still have several on the sick list. Sister Laura Scott, Josh McGee, Brother William Beal, been in the hospital in Memphis for about a month. He will probably get to come home, or not, we get come to Florence Rehab sometime this week, so he is doing much better at this time. I also remember William Thornton, Shirley Jones, Gabriel Elliott, Rose Beavers. Glad to see Brother Thomas back with us tonight after a round with COVID. Also remember Gail Holden, Tanisha Elliott's aunt, had knee replacement and has not been doing well with it. Glad to have Brother Ben Holly back tonight, and also Philip Patterson. Brother Urpa Cole is home with COVID. So remember all these folks. On other items, remember the care group is once again going to sponsor a child at Rogers for Christmas. If you would like to help, please see Diane Goins. She has the list. You can make a donation or purchase items on the list. Also remember on November the 22nd, we'll be having a family game night and shrimp boil here in the annex in Lone Cedar. If you don't want to eat shrimp, they'll also have chicken fingers. Please bring drinks, desserts, cocktail sauce, and your favorite family games. And there's a sign-up sheet in the foyer for that. Also, the men's and ladies serving sheet is still out there on the table out there if you would fill those out and get them to us. Anything that you would be willing to do. Also, remember Lone Cedar loafers will be going to Lovelace Cafe on November the 23rd. Meet there at 4 p.m. Enjoy food and fellowship together. And please sign the list in the foyer by November the 17th. And please mark on the sign-up sheet if you would like to ride the bus. Also, Youth News, Shoals Area Youth Series will be November the 17th, and vans will leave at 4:30 p.m. Have any other announcements of anyone? Okay, please stand for closing prayer.
Would you bow with me? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day and the many blessings you've given us here. And Father, it's times like this when we know that we are truly blessed. Be with those, Father, that are hurting. Be with those all around North Carolina area. Be with all the churches, Father, there, that they would help and help their people get better. We pray, Father, for this couple of guys that's with us tonight. We pray, Father, that you would travel with them. We pray, Father, that the things that they say and do would be things that you would be proud of. We ask that you go with us now in your Son's holy name I pray. Amen.